Well, the CBN seems to be happy to be here this morning, especially when they've just recently reduced some charges. However, there are still some question marks on certain other charges, or who should carry the cost of, certain other decisions on the part, well, not just on the part of the CBN. I guess it's the law. They're just trying to effect it now. We have with us this morning Kofo Salami Alada, who is Director Consumer Protection at the Central Bank of Nigeria. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Maupe. Happy to be here.
And compliments of the season to you.
Thank you. And I know Nigerians are happy with what they are seeing from the regulatory side.
Okay, well, we'll leave them to let us know if they're happy or not. Well, we see that you've recently issued a revised guide to drive financial inclusion. 10 naira on transfers below 5,000 naira, 25 naira for transfers between 5,000 naira to 50,000 naira, 50 naira on transfers above 50,000 naira, and then ATM bank charge revised to 35 naira from 65 naira when you use other banks' ATMs.
Correct.
Now, the question is, why now? Why is this just coming? This revision, some people will say, is way too late, because it would seem that a lot of banks, last time we were looking at their profit, it was way in the billions for just bank charges alone.
Well, thank you, Maupe. Well, why now? Historically, review of guide to bank charges, it is usually over a period of 5-year cycle. But if you take a look at, the 5-year plan unfolded by the governor in July or thereabout, following his reappointment as governor of Central Bank for his second term, one of the core elements of that plan, was financial inclusion. Having identified financial inclusion as a driver for financial system stability. So it's something that we could not trifle with in Central Bank of Nigeria. And there he said that, we're going to make, current customers and potential customers of bank to know the prices of the products and services being offered by banks. We're even going to take this further in the new year, and that is why we review the guide to bank charges in conjunction with stakeholders in the industry. Anyway, most of the programs, most of the regulations and guidelines issued by Central Bank usually come out after this intensive discussion with stakeholders. In a bid to drive financial inclusion, what are we looking at? Yes, the conventional bank offering of banking services is there, but it's also moved a notch higher to digital, provision of financial services through digital platform, and considering the fact that, the studies show that maybe 50% of the world population is actually unbanked or even hold smartphones everywhere. So we intend to leverage, that platform using the telcos who are now being encouraged to come in as payment service banks, into the system. You have just mentioned a few of the reduction. There are so many others. But what informed this is the need to ensure financial inclusion. Again, when you do financial inclusion, when you get people
I'm just a little curious. Right. So you say that financial inclusion is a motive for this. However, have we been able to do some research to find out that the people who are actually unbanked, who are getting salaries in cash, or however it is that they're getting it, or still earning their money in cash, actually use telephones?
No, I'm not saying that.
Have we been able to
note that it is not via telephone that you do financial inclusion. The conventional one is still there as well. Research has also shown...
Okay, I'll let you say what research has shown when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Yes, Mr. Kofo Salami Alada, Director Consumer Protection at the CBN, is going to be telling us how he's going to protect us from that 15 naira POS charge in a moment. But we're talking about inclusion, banking inclusion, and you were saying something about research. Yes, I was asking about how, those who have phones, whether they were unbanked.
Yes, what we have discovered is that, it is the multitude of people that we're trying to bring in. They come within the lower echelon, of maybe earners, and that's why most of the threshold that were put in place is actually protecting them specially. For example, for e-transactions, 60 to 61% of e-transactions are below 10,000. between June and November this year from our studies, below 10,000, and that is why the charges that you referred to earlier on, which has been reduced, targeted are those ones. It's also been discovered that even cash transaction, 500,000, less than 10% of Nigerians actually do transactions over 500,000 naira. And that was why, some of these thresholds have been so fixed. So when you're looking at holding telephone, it has become so expensive now to have brick-and-mortar banks around. So that is why we're leveraging, we're bringing in payment service banks. Hopefully some of them should open shops next year, so that the nooks and crannies, the far corners of Nigeria can be reached, via telephone banking, agent services. Then also, the CBN and banks have also even come together under the SANEP, that is Shared Agents Network Facility, where you can reach the lowest of the unbanked, in Nigeria. So it's expected that these people will come into the ecosystem, and for them to come in, CBN needs to take proactive steps to prepare for these people and ensure that eventually they're protected when eventually they are captured.
Help us understand this. Are you saying then that the 52 naira, the 50 kobo we're paying as a flat charge on whatever it is that you transfer before now? Because I think a lot of banks have finally gotten to a uniform figure of about 52 naira. We're told that a huge part of it was for stamp duty. Was it true?
Well, correct in the sense that, there's a law for stamp duty. It's a different thing from, charges. That one, if it is correct, CBN will not be able to tinker with it. You understand? It is not. So this is different. Those are charges for the services being provided by the bank. And this is the charge that we have now brought down and we have graduated it. It is only when you are doing a transfer of 50,000 naira and above that you'll be doing the 50 naira you are talking about. But the stamp duty is a different ballgame. This is a fiscal point. Is a statutory requirement that transfers funds received into account, the account holder must pay, stamp duty on the amount. Presently, it is 1,000 naira. But with the coming on board of the eventually when the finance bill is signed by the president to law, it will now be increased to 10,000 naira. It is only when you are doing any lodgement or any payment on account above 10,000 naira that you now be paying stamp duty. So for now, we are stuck with that because it's a statutory thing. And I know, then let's just quickly explain that it is the merchants who receive funds into their account who are expected to pay this stamp duty. It is not the payer. It's also like when you go into the bank to make lodgement, the account that receives that amount should pay tax on it because that is the requirement of the law. We are only just encouraging that, hey, we can't be regulating you and you'll be flouting the law. That's what CBN has just done.
Yeah, but
so
the question now is who is monitoring to ensure that the merchants are bearing the cost?
Let's quickly let you know that just like I said, the governor said in his 5-year plan that we are strengthening monitoring system across the board on every aspect of banking provision of banking services in Nigeria. So monitoring is the least of the thing. And you require, just like the way we acted on the mandated transfer of government money into the TSA, the same thing is happening here. Banks are being sanctioned where things are not done properly. So it's expected that any account that receives funds in Nigeria, that tax should be deducted. So it is the merchant's account that should, bear the responsibility. Or not just the merchant, it is even you yourself. If you receive any fund into your account, your current account, that tax must be paid on it. So it's the same thing with the merchants. So we are monitoring.
No, but the thing is, the merchants, of course, the money is already in the account.
Correct.
But the cost has already been borne by the customer.
That's what we're saying. We have already told Nigerians. And also, our colleagues in the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has also come out to say that no, customers are not supposed to pay. And the good news is that there are some high-end supermarkets, superstores who are already, they put it there, they have won back the hand of the clock and said, we are not taking it anymore. There are certain shops, I don't mention names here, where we have received information and you have posted there, almost apologizing to Nigerians, and they cannot pay back, but they have said, they are not going to collect the 50 naira from customers anymore.
Well, I can
That's
tell you,
good
I
news.
can still tell you that there are lots of shops still collecting.
Correct, I
and
say
a
so.
lot
That's
of,
why I say high-end.
Filling stations still collecting, the 15
I agree
naira
with you. Yes, I still pay.
from customers. You still paid?
I still pay.
It is interesting to know that you paid. Let us go to Lagos now and get another perspective. Chimberlin.
Well, yes, indeed. The regulators need to do something because customers are not smiling because they keep charging those monies, and these are hard-earned money. Well, we've got Mr. Olushola Teniola here with us. He's the President, Association of Telecommunications Companies of Nigeria, ATCON. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Caesar's greetings. Good morning to you.
Yeah, well, we just heard him here. He said, first of all, they consulted with stakeholders when they came up with these policies. You were part of the stakeholders. Were you consulted?
As long as the banks and CBN recognizes that the telecoms network is the means as to how they're accessing their consumers and customers, then we are a critical stakeholder, not just a stakeholder, because they're using our platform. And those platforms were built using private sector money. Most of our members have spent up to $70 billion since the liberalization of the telecoms industry since 2001 to date. And those $70 billion represent significant investments that has gotten us to where we are, where we have 173 million or plus subscribers that are using our network. We have other sectors that are also using the platforms. So the digital financial services is a new realm, not only from the traditional banking sector that is trying to sort of migrate onto that, but also others that can actually use the platforms in an innovative manner to provide services to the consumers, not only the ones that can afford it, as the gentleman has really pointed out from Abuja, but those that can't afford it. So there are many ways to skin a cat, and I think that the direction that the banks have taken is just one way, but not the best way.
So are you up in arms against them? Because if they say they consulted and they spoke with you, so were there any reduction of charges for those services, USSD, for instance?
Well, if they consulted amongst themselves and they didn't increase the larger stakeholders for engagement, then that's a conversation that's rather skewed in their favor. So they still need to come to the table and discuss how they want to use our platform going forward. Otherwise, there'll be no digital financial service inclusion. And let me point out some things. He pointed out statistics. It would appear that the banks are actually leveraging their current customers. So they're deriving revenue from the current customer base they have, not increasing
Why do you
financial
say
inclusion. Because A, they only have information about their own customers. They don't have information about those that just have mobile phones and no bank accounts. That information shouldn't be given to them anyway, because it's under data protection. So how are they saying that they're increasing financial inclusion? They're not. It's bank-led driven, technology-driven inclusion into the ABIS, if you don't mind me saying, because with evidence from other jurisdictions like Kenya, M-Pesa, which is telco-driven, that's when you've seen greater financial inclusion.
So why did he say that you don't achieve financial inclusion through telephones?
That's something you have to ask him. I don't know any other way you can access the 173 million subscribers. 173 million subscribers represents a greater number of those who are paying for telecom services than those that own bank accounts, which I believe is around 35, 40 million banked customers.
There's this, in the guideline, in the NCC guideline, to telcos, there's one of the items there that says it was suggested that the Commission averts, that's the NCC, averts its focus from attempting to determine USSD costs to engaging with the central bank towards securing fair charges for the users of USSD-based financial services. Well, that would suggest then that maybe there's been some conversation between NCC and CBN communicated to telcos?
I think there's been many conversations. We've had meetings right from May of this year or even earlier where we tried to come up with a reasonable charge to the banks. There are two types of charges. They are treated like a customer, like any other customer. They're treated as a corporate customer. They get a bill sent to them for the usage of this USSD platforms, like the SMS platform. So it's just two different channels, but on the same platform. So when they get the bill, they pay it. If you don't pay it, we, under the NCA 2003 Act, have every right to disconnect them. Then there was a discussion around the fact that the banks were collecting certain fees on the back of these platforms, and we're not sharing the right revenue with the telcos. That was the genesis of the problem. And I think that's when this huge problem came up, where it was suggested to our members that they should do end user billing, which amounts to double billing, because the banks are collecting. They're now saying that they won't share the revenue with the telcos.
But the telcos can't collect
So they're saying that we should now go directly to the customer and collect, which is not the right thing.
That would,
Double billing should not be done in any transaction. And I think the banks have to understand that. It seems like there seems to be this confusion in between who's meant to be collecting, who's not meant to be collecting. So that's why when they say they've engaged wider stakeholder, I don't believe that, because then these issues won't come up, because there should be one person collecting, then the value chain should be fed from that one source, not that there's an implication that, oh, I've collected my own, it's my own money, it's my own customer, and you should also find a way to collect your own charges, which is a platform that they're using.
Okay, so NCC has recommended USSD charges to telcos, and the CBN is also doing that. So which one of these recommendations, NCC or CBN, does the telcos have to
Well,
adopt?
the telcos are licensed or regulated by NCC. So the determination of the latest one, the determination that was dated in July 23rd of this year, stands. And it has a floor pricing, USSD session, and a ceiling. That ceiling, whether it's a certain figure, and the floor, which is a certain figure, should be paid by the banks to the telcos. The issue around end-user billing should have even come up, because it amounts to double billing. So the banks need to actually understand they have to pay for this platform. The platform has been enhanced, has been upgraded to allow them to do things that are over and beyond what it was designed for. As I've always stated, it's an old technology. It assumes you have just 2G phones. It wasn't meant to be a forward evolving technology for 3G, 4G, and I think right now, next year, we will be having 5G. So we can't, as an industry, be supporting old technology as the world is evolving. Technology evolves.
Are you phasing something out anytime soon?
There will be a phase out, but this is not the this is not the place to discuss that. With any technology, there will be a phase out. But you have to know that Nigerians, majority of them, hold 2G phones. So the easiest way for the banks to access their unbanked or banked customer is through 2G phones. But really, there are other ways to also access these phones, but they've not decided to go down that road. So they've now used technology as a means of earning additional revenue, it would appear, because those services need to be paid. They're just like information technology services. As the world evolves, new technology comes on, you shouldn't be passing the cost of technology onto the consumers. Banking services is about loans, I believe, mostly loaning, mostly through transactions on the stock market, through corporate financing, through trading. That's where they should get their money from, not from evolution of technology.
All right, let's get the CBN to respond directly to this, because it affects the consumers themselves. Mark?
So is it right then that the telcos were not included as the stakeholders in this discussion?
You know that the guide to buy charges that were brought out is not just about electronic banking. It's a holistic thing, you know. And when we say we consulted stakeholders, we did consult stakeholders, you know. So maybe outcome may not be represented directly, but we should, something that where we agree with Mr. Teniola there is the fact that in the guide to bank charges, what we have done is to ensure that most of the services that are offered by a third party like telcos and the rest of them are based on cost recovery. You know, he is right that we are not expecting banks to start making money off the back of the customers, you know, for services they are receiving from for other providers. And that is why we've just put there cost recovery. It is only what you have spent that you should recover from your customers.
So let us get this clearly. You say ATCON might not have been a part of the discussion. However, were telcos a part of it?
They were. I can confirm
the telecommunication companies were a part of the discussion.
These people are engaged. Teniola confirmed the fact that discussions have been going on. You understand? So it is all this discussion that dovetail into some of the action that we have taken. You understand? So if I may just drag you back into the fact that, when you put this out there, we expect that this is evolving. And that is why we went as far as now licensing payment system, service banks. We cannot control, we don't regulate telcos, no. It's banks and other financial institutions that we do regulate. But where you want to now play, because before now, there have been major moves by telcos to actually pay in that sphere. So if we're going the Kenya way, we should find a way of regulating them. And that's why a new form of institution known as Payment Service Bank are being licensed to offer services. So when they come in, CBN will be able to regulate them directly. And in preparation for all this, you understand? And when they do come in, they will be using phones and the rest of them, whatever type, 2G, 3G, or whatever, technology will keep evolving. But in preparation for this and all that, even existing services provided, and that's why Central Bank came up also simultaneously with the revised guide to bank charges with the consumer protection regulations. And in these regulations, the expectation is that, the details of the services, the products being offered by institutions, will be put out there in line with principle of disclosure and transparency. So, and small print will never be permitted. We have actually even prescribed, the minimum font that will be available in your provision of, documentation to your customers. So, and expectation also is that you cannot even review, interest rate if you had not put it there in the documentation when you are onboarding this customer, for a particular service. So also a chapter under the regulation also, say customers should be treated fairly. And under that particular chapter, we expect banks and other financial institutions to consider the specific vulnerability of customers. So when we put that one there, because of the expectation of people who will be coming into the system, the people who want to bring into the financial ecosystem, the people who are presently unbanked. So banks should not consider the fact that remember before now that there are certain banks who said, place the minimum that you can actually even have before you open an account with them. No.
You couldn't confirm to me whether or not, we have been able to do a research that confirms that the people whom we're seeking to bank, to get into the banking system, have been covered by the networks or currently use telephones. Do we have that information?
Listen, what we have is that our research has shown that we have enough. Remember, yes, we are targeting 95%. It is not correct that we have maybe 95% penetration. Know that it is not just telephone that we're relying on. Okay? You'll note that we're going to all the local governments through the SANEF network, you understand? So yes, we want to leverage on telephone, but that is not the only form of banking that will ensure financial inclusion. Okay, that is interesting. Quickly, you also confirmed that you paid 15 naira even after the CBN said the customers should not pay. Correct. How did you were you able to correct the situation there? You can be sure of that. And I remember the attendant actually told me this is the first time he's hearing very good explanation about this. And we told them, and they said, by next year, they will not be doing it again. Oh. That's it. So that's the expectation. Well, I think the question will be, if we see the situation, who do we report to? It's a big question, but I will certainly try to get that information maybe when we come back from this break. But we have to go. We have to go right now. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise. So I'll be getting it from him when we're in the break. Please stay with us. I have to say thank you for coming on Sunrise, Mr. Kofo Salami Alada, who is the Director of Consumer Protection at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on. Thank you very much. The program will continue shortly. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Well, he insists that some sort of consultation, did go on. Directly with the telcos, perhaps. Was that what you said when you said, well, conversation had been going on previously?
When I said ongoing conversations had been had, back in May 2019. This was before the USSD issue sprung up. What's interesting is that if that meeting had gone well, we wouldn't have revealed all these hidden or unknown charges. So I said recently in a discussion on the same subject that we need transparency. The banks have to be transparent to their customers. There seems to be this confusion of what rates apply and why a transaction on my money that I hold in a bank is being given or imposed a fee or a charge. The telco platform has always existed, and it exists for other sectors, and we don't have this issue. You know, it's only with the banks we have this issue. And it seems to be that the banks have seen an avenue to make money. And I said it before, they're making billions, hundreds of billions in this case, of money on the back of technology evolution. SMSs, for instance, isn't a problem. It's at cost recovery, as he's indicated. USSD should be at cost recovery. In fact, banks shouldn't charge for the SMS or for the USSD.
Thank goodness for the OTP.
They should actually understand that that's not what banking is about.
So what's going to happen at the end of the day? Because if this drags on, or when you, or as the conversation continues, are you going to insist that, well, look, you've charged hundreds of millions or billions over time. When they eventually agree to pay, do they have to go back to when they began those charges? Because you provide the services.
Well, end user billing will not happen. We are not going to go to the customers and take from the consumer charges that really applies to the banks. Corporate billing will apply. It's status quo. They use the platform. We know the transactions that are used. You are sent the bill. And that's under the USSD price determination of the 23rd of July, 2019.
Okay.
So further discussions in between CBN, NCC, I think the bankers, CEOs, they can go on, but they really need to address it in a wider stakeholder forum because they are using the telco platform, unless they decide to build their own platform.
All right, then. Mr. Olushola Teniola is the President, Association of Telecommunications Companies of Nigeria, ATCON. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Most welcome.
Well, just before you go, let's take some of these messages coming through from the people. This is about POS charges, and it's coming from King SA? Okay. Well, King says, I was charged yesterday when I bought fuel for my car. I spoke vividly to the petrol attendant, and she told me how Oga still asked for the 50 naira charges. CBN should provide a report channel on this, please.
Oh, we'll probably supply you that tomorrow. But this one is on Nigeria's economy. We all know the mess of the PDP. We all know the mess the PDP put us into, but it's high time the APC-led government stopped blaming their predecessors. They have everything at their beck and call to put this nation back on the right path. God bless Nigeria.
Well, yeah, we understand and appreciate your messages. Please do keep them coming. And what a year it's been. We thank you all for letting us be a part of not just your day, for the year now.
Absolutely.
We can say that. Well, we will see you next year. Thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Ayo Makine. Have a wonderful day and a happy new year ahead.
Well, I know I did keep that promise about getting the contacts to call if you're charged 15 naira. And as the producer, well, Ayo did mention, we will get it to you tomorrow so that you can see it properly. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Thank you for watching and a happy new year to you in advance.